What if your future father-in-law disguised himself as a filthy beggar? Just to test your heart? She failed that test. But what happened next will leave you stunned and questioning everything about love, pride, and second chances. The sun scorched the narrow village road, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. NID adjusted her blouse nervously, clutching the gift basket meant for her future father-in-law. Her fiancé, Tun, had gone inside to speak with the monk. She waited alone outside the temple gates, sweat trickling down her spine. A hunched figure approached slowly from the alley. His clothes were torn, crusted with dirt. His eyes were watery, skin wrinkled like ancient bark. "Please, just some food," he croaked, extending a trembling hand. The stench of rot and old sweat hit her. She stepped back, instinctively shielding the basket. "I do not have extra," she said coldly, avoiding his eyes. The man coughed violently, his breath rattling with each gasp. NID looked away, her face tightening. Other villagers had warned her. The area was full of scammers. She turned, pretending to check her phone. Her heart thudded fast, but not from pity, from disgust. The man stumbled, gripping the edge of her skirt to steady himself. She recoiled sharply, pulling away. "Do not touch me." Her voice cut through the still afternoon. A young monk passing by paused, watching the scene in silence. The beggar's eyes glinted strangely. Then, slowly, he stood straighter than before. He wiped his face, and with one smooth motion, removed the worn cap from his head. NID's breath caught. Under the grime was a face she recognized. From photos Tun had shown her with pride, it was his father, alive, watching, judging. NID's legs weakened beneath her. Her fingers tightened around the basket handle until it creaked. Tun's father, here, pretending to be a beggar? Her mind raced, searching for an explanation, for a way to undo what had just happened. He said nothing, only stared. Those eyes, no longer watery, but sharp and cold. The monk bowed slightly to him, then walked away without a word. NID's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The basket felt heavier now, as if guilt had soaked into every piece of fruit and snack inside. She forced a smile, tried to speak. I did not know it was you." Still, he said nothing. He stepped closer. Each step echoed in her ears like a drumbeat of judgment. She could see it now. The disguise, though clever, had cracks, but her heart had been too close to notice. "I thought you were someone else," she whispered, voice trembling. "You were right." He finally spoke, his tone calm, measured. "I was someone else, and so were you." She flinched. A breeze stirred the dust at their feet. Birds chirped in the distance, mocking the silence between them. Tun's voice rang out behind her, cheerful and unaware. "Father, you came early." NID spun around. Tun approached with a grin, hands full of incense sticks. His smile faded as he saw his father's attire. Then his gaze shifted to NID, and everything in his eyes changed. Confusion turned to realization. Realization turned to something colder. NID felt the ground tilt beneath her. Her future was unraveling, thread by thread. Tun looked between them. Once, twice. His eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched. "What happened?" His voice was low, steady, but his hand shook slightly. NID stepped forward, but her words caught in her throat. I thought he was just..." She stopped herself. Just a beggar. She could not say it. Not now. Not in front of Tun. Tun turned to his father. Why would you do this?" The old man stared at NID. "She showed me who she is." When no one was watching, Tun's shoulders dropped. His breath came slow, heavy. NID tried to reach for his arm. "Please, Tun, I did not mean to." He pulled back, gently, but deliberately. The space between them grew colder. Tun's father walked past them both, heading toward the temple steps. But before entering, he paused. Without turning around, he said, "Respect is not proven when people are watching. It is revealed when they are not." NID stood frozen. Her ears burned. Her throat ached. She looked down at the basket, the one she had guarded so fiercely. Useless now, like an offering at the wrong altar. Tun said nothing. He only looked at her as if seeing a stranger for the first time. A breeze lifted her hair. She wished it would carry her away, but it only left her there, exposed, ashamed, and utterly alone. The silence stretched. Too long, too loud. Even the wind seemed to hesitate. Tun turned his back to her, not in anger, but in disappointment. That was worse. NID reached out again. "Tun, please. I made a mistake." He did not turn. He only said, "Mistakes show who we really are when we stop pretending." Each word hit like a stone. Heavy, final. Her eyes welled up, but no tears fell. She had cried too late. Inside the temple, bells began to chime. Soft, distant, almost like a warning. NID stood alone at the gate, her fingers still gripping the basket, as if letting go would mean admitting it was all over. Villagers passed, whispering. Some stared. Others looked away. Tun walked slowly up the temple steps, his figure growing smaller, further. His father waited at the top, no longer a beggar, but a guardian, a judge. They entered together, side by side, leaving her behind. NID looked down at her shoes, dust-covered, smeared with regret. She finally placed the basket on the stone bench beside her, untouched, unwanted. A crow landed nearby, pecking curiously at the fruit. She watched it, empty and still, then turned and walked away, one slow step at a time. But behind her, a voice stopped her cold. It was a father, calm, quiet, clear. "I gave you a chance to show love, not just to me, but to someone with nothing." NID froze. Her heart pounded in her ears. She turned, hoping, desperate, but what she saw was not forgiveness. It was a final look, not of hatred, not even of anger, but of truth, undeniable, irreversible. The truth hung in the air, like smoke from incense, visible, suffocating, impossible to ignore. NID's lips parted, but her voice refused to come. That look, it stripped her bare, more than words ever could. Tun stood beside his father now, his arms folded, his face unreadable. The distance between them was no longer just steps. It was trust lost, respect shattered. A group of temple children ran by, laughing, barefoot, oblivious to the storm that had just passed through. NID watched them disappear down the path. A pang shot through her, of innocence, of chances she had thrown away. She turned once more toward Tun, her eyes pleading. "I love you." She whispered, not loudly, but enough that it trembled in the air. He looked at her, really looked, and for a moment, she saw the Tun she had met months ago. Gentle, warm, full of dreams. But that Tun was fading, washed away by what he had seen today. He spoke softly, as if not wanting to break something fragile. "Love is not proved in words." Then he turned and entered the temple. This time, he did not look back. NID stood still. Her heart sank slowly, like a stone dropped in deep water. Around her, life moved on. The sun climbed higher. The village buzzed again. But inside her, everything had gone quiet, too quiet. And in that silence, one thought echoed over and over. She had failed the test. Not of kindness, not of tradition, but of simple, human decency. NID stood rooted in place, as if the earth itself refused to let her escape. Each breath felt heavier than the last. not from heat, but from shame. Villagers no longer whispered. They simply passed her by, as if she were no longer part of their world. She turned away from the temple gates, her steps slow, unsteady. The sounds of prayer and chanting drifted behind her, soft and distant, like a life she was no longer welcome in. She passed the same alley where she first saw him, the same broken crates, the same sunlit dust. But now, every detail felt sharp, like the setting itself was etched in her memory, a scene she would replay forever. A stray dog lay under the shade, its ribs showing, its eyes half closed. NID paused. Something inside her cracked, not loudly, but deeply. She knelt, reaching slowly into the basket she had abandoned earlier. Still untouched, still full, she pulled out a rice cake, held it toward the dog. It sniffed, then ate. No hesitation, no judgment. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from something else. The realization of how simple it was to choose kindness, and how easily she had refused it when it mattered most. Behind her, the temple bell rang again. Not a call, not a signal, a reminder. NID lowered her head. The tears came now, silent and slow, tracing the edges of her face, like the truth she could no longer run from. The rice cake was gone. The dog licked its paws, then looked up at her with calm, unblinking eyes that held no resentment, no past, only the present. NID stared back. A bitter smile touched her lips. If only people were this forgiving. She whispered, her voice barely louder than the breeze. She rose to her feet slowly, dust clinging to her knees. The sun now hung high, merciless and bright. She walked, not knowing where to go, only that she could not stay here. Each step echoed louder in her head. Then on the path beneath her feet, shadows of memory followed. Tun's voice, his father's stare, her own indifference, looping like a cruel lullaby. A small roadside shrine appeared ahead, its paint faded, its offerings wilted. She stopped. A faint breeze rustled the hanging bells. They chimed gently, as if aware of her presence. Her hands reached into the basket again, this time without hesitation. She placed a fruit, then another, carefully, respectfully, for no one in particular, just to give, to offer, because for the first time, she wanted to, not out of tradition, but remorse. Her heart beat heavier now, not from fear, from awakening. Then a voice behind her, low, firm, unexpected. You remember how to give, but can you remember how to feel? She spun around, and there he was, Tun's father, standing beneath the Bodhi tree, hands behind his back, watching her. No disguise now, no test, only truth. Her breath caught, her chest tightened. She opened her mouth to speak, but he raised one hand, a quiet signal, not to stop her, but to make her listen. The wind hushed. Even the leaves on the Bodhi tree stilled, as if the world itself paused to listen. NID stood frozen, her fingers still resting on the edge of the shrine. Tun's father stepped forward, his eyes steady, his face unreadable. You fed the dog, he said softly, but not the man. The word struck her, more deeply than any insult could. She lowered her gaze, unable to hold his eyes. I was afraid, she whispered, afraid of dirt or of seeing something in yourself. His question lingered in the air, sharp, merciless. NID clenched her jaw, not in defiance, but to stop herself from crying again. I judged you, she admitted, her voice cracking. I assumed you were nothing. I forgot that someone's worth is not worn on their clothes. He nodded slowly, expression still calm. But what will you do now that you know? That question, it burned deeper than the first. She looked up at him, finally meeting his gaze. "I want to be better," she said. Her voice did not tremble this time. He stepped closer. The shade of the tree brushed over them both. "Words are easy," he said. "It is the next choice that tells the truth." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a folded photograph. He held it out. NID took it with both hands. Carefully, reverently, it was a photo of Tun's late mother, smiling, holding a basket just like the one NID had carried. She once fed 10 strangers before feeding herself, he said, his voice softer now. She believed love was proven, in moments no one ever sees. NID felt the tears return, but she did not wipe them away. They were not for show, not for pity. They were real, like the weight of the lesson, sinking deep into her bones. The photo trembled slightly in her hands, not from the wind, but from the storm inside her. She studied the woman's face, the gentle eyes, the quiet strength in her smile, a smile that gave, without asking, that welcomed, without testing. NID's throat tightened. She felt the weight of generations in that image, of expectations, of love freely given. And love failed. Tun's father stepped back, his eyes still on her. "You were not tested because I hated you," he said. "I tested you because my son loved you." The words cut cleanly, not with anger, but with the precision of truth. "I needed to see if you would carry her spirit, not just her name." NID gripped the photo to her chest, a silent promise forming, unspoken but burning. She opened her mouth, but before she could speak, Tun appeared behind his father, his face shadowed by the branches above. He had heard everything. NID turned to him, searching his expression, but it was unreadable, a mixture of hurt, conflict, and something else she could not name. He stepped forward slowly, eyes locked on hers. The space between them was no longer cold, just uncertain. Her lips parted. "Tun, He held up a hand, not to silence, to wait. His father looked at him, then gave a small nod, and quietly stepped aside. This moment, this pause, felt like the edge of a cliff. One breath, and everything could change, or fall. Tun stood before her, not as a lover, not yet as a stranger, but as someone deciding which way to turn. The birds called softly from the trees. The sky above was cloudless, clear, unforgiving, honest. NID clutched the photograph tighter. She stepped closer, just enough to close the silence. "I failed," she said. Her voice did not shake. She owned the words. "I judged. I assumed. I turned away when I should have opened my hands." Tun looked at her, his eyes searching, not for perfection, but for truth. "I do not want to be that person," she continued. "I want to grow, to earn your trust again, not with promises, but with every small choice from this day forward." The wind stirred, carried her words into the stillness between them. Tun breathed in deeply. Then slowly, he reached for the photograph in her hand. He looked at it, then at her. "She would have wanted you to try," he said quietly. "She always believed in second chances." A long silence followed. Then he took her hand, not fully, not tightly, but enough to say, "This is not the end, but it will not be easy." And that was more than she hoped for. Tun's father, watching from beneath the tree, nodded once, then turned away, leaving them with the space to begin again. The bells from the shrine chimed softly. The wind carried the scent of jasmine, and for the first time that day, NID let go of the guilt, not to forget, but to remember rightly. Not all tests are meant to break us. Some are meant to rebuild,